Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining for our today's session, Navigating Your PhD Journey in the US. As you already know, my name is Yana Ovcharenko, and I am an outreach coordinator here at Education USA Ukraine. Let me just briefly remind you that Education USA is your official source on US higher education. And we have various opportunities that can help you to ease your personal journey. So you can just go to our website and see all possible opportunities. You can sign up for a free consultation, and Education USA advisors and our partners will be extremely happy to help you with your journey. Today, we are going to talk about what it truly means to pursue your PhD and how to prepare yourself for academic and personal demands of this journey, and actually how to make the best of your time, of being a doctoral student. So whether you're considering applying for a PhD or already preparing your application, or just curious about the process, this session is designed for you to give some valuable tips and practical advice how to prepare yourself for this journey. And today we have three amazing speakers, Sabrina, Jody, and Terry. They will help you actually to navigate this journey and share some valuable tips and advice. And as we usually do, we are going to have a Q&A session at the end. So please write down all your questions in the chat box, and at the end you will have all your answers. Now, ladies, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us. And I'd love to thank you all for being here with us. I'm really excited for us to share some insights that we have from our corner of the globe. And I really welcome your questions that we have. So I'd love to jump into our presentation, if we could. So firstly, I'd like to go over a little bit of what we're going to chat about today, and then let our speakers that have joined me give a little introduction of who they are and what they do here. But we are with UNC Charlotte, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But I would love to kick it over to Terry first, and then to Jody to introduce themselves and share a little bit about what they do and what kind of qualifies us to chat with you today. Terry, would you like to kick it off for us?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Hello, everybody. So I'm Terry Shi. I'm a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, and I'm also the associate chair for the graduate programs. So in our department, we have the graduate program for the master student and also the doctoral students. I work closely with those students and provide not the best, from my point of view, it's the best learning experience to them. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jody?
Hello, I'm Jody Marshall, Director of Graduate Studies in the College of Computing and Informatics here at UNC Charlotte. And I work closely with PhD students in both computer science, software and information systems, and we also have a track in the College of Business. And at this time, we have about 115 PhD students in our program, but we also have a very large master's program in those fields. I think our master's programs just in computer science and software and information systems alone is over 600 master's students. So I am glad to be here and look forward to your questions at the end.
Absolutely. And my name's Sabrina Brown. I'm the Director of Graduate Recruitment. I am in the graduate school, so I get to work with all prospective students coming in at a lot of different levels in their graduate journey. So I'm really excited to have two experts that can give even more of an insight into that PhD journey from a more specific perspective. Today we're gonna, I'd be remiss if I didn't share a little bit about UNC Charlotte and creating a little bit of the context for which our PhD programs exist. And then we hope to zoom out a bit and talk about, the structure of PhD education in the US. We know that it can vary country to country. what you can do or be thinking about as you prepare for doctoral education, some tips and tricks and things that you can expect as you go through the application process. And then investing in your education, it's not just time. We know that it does take money. And so we want to speak a little bit about some funding resources you should be thinking about and ways that you can think about investing in your education. Managing your time as a PhD student, and then some career outcomes and pathways. So things that you can expect after you graduate from your PhD program. And our hope is that we're answering a lot of the general questions that you may have. But again, the chat is open and we will also have Q&A at the end to hopefully answer some of those things that are top of mind for you. So a little bit about Charlotte, again, giving context for where we're sort of coming from. Charlotte is in the state of North Carolina. That's in the southeastern part of the United States. And what's really great about Charlotte that a lot of people don't know, because when they think of big city, they may think of New York or Chicago or Los Angeles. But Charlotte is the 15th largest city in the United States. We are home to 10 Fortune 500 companies and a lot more household names. So a lot of career opportunities are available here. We are the third fastest growing city in the United States. So a lot of people are finding value in coming to Charlotte. We exist within the second largest financial district in the United States. And even if you're not interested in sort of a banking, financial business background, business is really in everything that we do. And so you'll see that there are a lot of interdisciplinary offerings within employment, within our academic programs, things like that, that really connect to the region in which we live. And then just something that's really nice about where we're located is we're 2 to 3 hours from the ocean to the mountains. So we have a lot of opportunity. We have an international airport, things like that. So a lot of really great opportunity in terms of the location of where we are. And then zooming in a little bit to our graduate program offerings, we do offer over 150 graduate offerings that range from certificates, master's programs, and PhD programs. We have roughly 6,200 graduate students, so a really nice population there. We span across 2 different campuses. We have our very large main campus, and we also have an uptown campus, which is really exciting because we get to have a lot of industry connections because we're right uptown. And then we're really proud of how diverse and inclusive our campus is. And so about 26% of our graduate population are international students. And then zooming in even more to our doctoral program offerings, I'm really excited that we have about 14 more traditional, and we'll talk about what structure and what traditional means when we talk about kind of that structure with doctoral programs, but we offer 14 traditional academic doctoral programs that are within specific educational disciplines. 10 more, so we have 24 total doctoral programs. 10 of those are STEM designated. We'll also talk about what that means. And then 2 of our doctoral programs are professional, so within our business spaces. And so those really connect a lot to industry and have a lot of professional applications, as do our academic, but the structure is a little bit different. So that's just us sort of at a glance. And I want to give just high level what kind of PhD programs look like in the United States. And then I'd love to tap into Jody and Terry so they can talk about their programs a bit and how they're structured and some of those differences that might be there. But what's really exciting about doctoral programs is this is essentially the terminal degree. This is the highest that you can go. And so this is advanced academic study. And what's different maybe about this compared to undergraduate education is that in undergraduate education, you're getting and gaining a lot of information. Once you get to the PhD level, the expectation is that you're creating through research, expanding bodies of knowledge. And so you're really contributing to what is in the research, what is in the field within a specific topic. Again, it is the highest level of degree within a field. And so it goes without saying that there are a lot of people that don't quite get to this level because it's challenging, but also exciting, but also has some additional expectations that don't exist at those sort of lower levels. Some key points is depending on the program structure, it can take you 3 years, which is pretty quick and accelerated, all the way up to 8 or 10 years, depending on maybe how long your program allows you to take. Most of the time, we want you to stay in that 3 to 5 range. That's a good thing to think about when you're looking at program expectations. And usually it's made up of coursework that you're expected to complete, and then you move into a dissertation research phase. Again, there are different structures, modalities, and I think Jody and Terry will talk to that. But that's generally the structure you can expect. There's usually a core of coursework that you need to work through, and then you're moving into your individual research, working with the faculty on that. So it is going to be a blend of coursework, research, and then many PhD programs expect that you're either a TA or an RA where you're assisting with research or teaching. And then again, most of them do require a dissertation at the end. One quick plug for STEM designated programs, because we do have those represented here, and it usually means a lot of great things for international students, is that if you are thinking about going into a STEM field, there are usually additional benefits of you graduating from a STEM designated program, which means you can stay in the US longer without having to have sponsorship and find some work on the back end. You can usually stay up to about 3 years if you have a STEM designated program, which makes it great because if you're looking at working in the US, sometimes it can be challenging to get sponsored, but you could get on with a company, work with them for a few years, they understand what you bring to their company, and then that opens up pathways for sponsorship for longer term permanent employment. Sometimes these programs also come with additional scholarships and funding to help you when you're investing in your education. And again, it can expand those career opportunities. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to Terry first to talk a little bit about what PhD and doctoral programs look like in the College of Engineering. So go for it, Terry.
Thank you. So I'm from the mechanical engineering. So what I'm going to talk about is what is happening in the ME. But I think the same structure is also happening to other civil engineering, electrical, and infrastructure and environmental system there. So for our PhD program, like what Sabrina just said, usually student takes 3 to 5 years to complete it, right? We take students, when students get admitted, there are 2 different routes they can complete their PhD degree. One is if you come in, you only have a bachelor degree, and we expect you to spend 5 years to get your degree done. And students need to complete about 72 credit hours. And the second route is for a student who already had a master degree and you get admitted into a PhD program. The student will be placed in the so-called advanced standing option, and we expect student will spend 4 years to complete the PhD degree. So that's the difference between, so when you apply and when you get admitted, what is the starting point, whether you have a bachelor degree or you have a master degree already. But in general, it's talking about 4 to 5 years. And once the student get admitted, so the student have taking a couple of courses and they do the research hours here, but then the students will need to meet a couple of milestones here. The first milestones is in our program, and I think EC, I'm pretty much sure for the EC department, they also have that. It's called a qualifying exam. So for all the students who joined us, so in their 3rd semester, they will take 3 written tests there. And one exam is related to the mathematics skill, and other 2 exams are related to the knowledge they need for their research. For example, so my background is in the material science and solid mechanics. The PhD student worked with me. They took 3 exams. One is math, and the other is material science. And the third one, it will be solid mechanics. And it's always the student will discuss with the dissertation advisor, and then they decide what the exams they are going to take. Once the student passes the qualifying exam, and then the next milestone will be the proposal defense. It's talking about you need to form a committee, and then the committee members, you need to present in front of the committee members. You need to present the layout of the research project you are going to do. Right, so what have been done, what the things you propose to do, and the preliminary results. And then the committee will say, oh, you passed the proposal defense and you can move on. After that, students will just focus on doing the research, and then at the end of close to their graduation, so they need to have a final defense, and they need to submit a dissertation. So generally, so it's talking about students spend 4 to 5 years working with a dissertation advisor, and then meet 3 milestones there. And of course, there are other more specific things, right? So it's some expectation from your own dissertation advisor. Advisor will, when you be a PhD student, definitely publication in the journals is something we are looking for. Some advisors will talking about you need to publish 4 papers, journal papers. Some may say, oh, so 3 conference papers is okay, because different fields has a different standards there. In some field, say in the manufacturing, right? So a conference paper is equivalent to a journal paper. It need to go through a very rigorous review there, right? So, but that's something the PhD student will work with the dissertation advisor, right? I also just to recall what Sabrina shows in the previous slides, they're talking about the opportunity for the CPT and OPT. I think international student, because I was an international student, so those things are very important to me. So I would say in our program, all the faculty member, we are trying very hard to use our own connection to help students to get the CPT opportunity. I give 2 examples. So there's one student is from Egypt. So she is doing the CPT, so with Boeing. And again, so this is how she got this CPT opportunity is through the advisor. So she is close. She has 1 more year to graduate, but she is doing CPT right now. Another student is from Russia. So he is doing the CPT with a local company, is on the battery engineer. And again, how he got it is the opportunity is through the advisor. So I just want to let the prospective students know it's our program. I would say our program has a very good tradition is to faculty member to work with the students, particularly international students, try to secure those CPT opportunity. And also down the road when the student graduates, so help the student to find that job. Myself is my first student is from Bangladesh, and with some help from my former classmates, so he got into Intel. And then right now I have actually 6 students graduate from my groups. They're all in Intel. So again, just want to emphasize in our program, we work very hard with the students. So it's not just the 5 years skip the training, but also we get students ready for the future career. So that's I want to give a general information to the prospective students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. So a couple things I want to raise up from that you pointed out. We talked about research and how you have coursework, but you shared, there are a couple of exams along the way. So it's not like, oh, I'm just going to come and do any sort of research. There are a couple of, like you said, milestones and benchmarks along your program that you need to be prepared. You're not just going to come and take a class and then do research, right? There are going to be a couple of almost knowledge check-ins to make sure that you're on track, both with your research and with your curriculum. So thank you for raising that up. I appreciate that. Jody, would you like to speak a little bit to your programs?
Sure. I'm going to go back to I'm a piggyback off what both you and Terry said. Before you apply to any PhD program, you need to make sure that you enjoy doing research. If it's PhD or if it's a professional program, that's a little bit different, but you have to enjoy doing research, and you need to, before you even apply, you need some research experience, or if you've worked in industry, you need some experience working on projects with others. Because when you are applying to PhD programs, that's what many faculty members are looking for, that you have had some research experience as an undergrad, or you've worked on different projects in industry or with an internship. So as stated previously, I'm in the College of Computing and Informatics, and we actually have 3 doctoral programs now. So we have a doctorate in data science that will be starting in fall of 2025. So at this time, they are recruiting students and accepting applications. So that's going to be for full-time and part-time studies. And that's more, but the data science doctorate is also very interdisciplinary. So you may have a faculty member in this College of Data Science, and they may partner with a faculty member in liberal arts or in engineering, or, here in CCI, we have a number of faculty members who in computer science or software and information systems that are also a part of the School of Data Science. So that is one of our newest doctoral programs. So there is some difference when you're applying to a engineering, computer science doctoral programs versus a life science. So we have a PhD in bioinformatics and computational biology. Many of your life sciences, they will allow students to do rotations before a advisor is selected. So you get to study different areas of that field. Bioinformatics is has that structure in place where those incoming students, they engage in research in different areas before they finalize the area they want to focus their dissertation or their studies in. And that's a good thing, because you get to see what you like and then what you don't like. The PhD in computing and information systems, we are currently working on admissions at this time, and those students come in, but they also already have a faculty advisor that they're going to work with. Even though you might be assigned a faculty advisor, doesn't mean you have to stay with that person if you don't like the research, or there may be a personality, some differences in personalities or work ethics, and you can change that. But I wanted you to know about those differences in different types of research programs. So if you're applying to different programs, look at the website and look at what their requirements are, what the first year of study would be like. But one of the things I also really want to emphasize, and we had a guest speaker who came to UNC Charlotte last year to talk about doctoral studies. The expectation is you're going to do research. You're going to take your classes. You're going to do not only your research, you may be doing some of your faculty members' research as well. And that is an expectation that you're not just coming to take classes. You are also engaged in research and publishing as a student. And one of the things Terry talked about here in CCI, before students graduated, the expectation is they will have published journal articles or conference proceedings. And there are different areas that have different requirements. So, for instance, our students who are in computer science education, conference papers are fine. They don't necessarily have to have published journal articles, but then different areas like cloud computing or computer vision, those faculty members expect that those students are submitting publications or submitting journal articles to national computer science journals. It just depends on the area of research in which you're studying. And I think what Terry said about the exams and whatnot, it's the same over here about the qualifying exam, proposal defense, and then the final defense.
Absolutely. Some programs also have a comprehensive exam. I know I'm currently a doc student, and so I had a qualifying exam and I had a comprehensive exam. And then there's also proposal defense and then your final defense. And I'm in an education program. So I think the biggest thing, I wouldn't say the biggest thing, everything that our speakers have chatted about today is important, but I think that you can tell there's a lot of investment that goes into the PhD process, and a lot of creation that comes sort of from you. And so we are talking about publications, research, being on research. So like your research, being on research with faculty, of course, your normal courses, And then, some programs have rotations and things like that. Our next slide is about preparing for doctoral education, and I'll let Dr. Marshall speak to that. But that's absolutely one of the components you want to consider as you're researching programs is what is this investment going to look like? What program metrics are there? And your websites and or graduate program directors should know that very well when you reach out to them. And that's going to help you really understand what is the next few years going to look like and how are you going to balance that, within your other life priorities and things like that. And as you do research, you'll be able to compare programs as well to see, oh, I like this component of this program and this component of another. And there are some programs that are also, this is the last note I'll make before turning it over to you, Dr. Marshall, is there are some programs, again, I'm coming from an education program, and this isn't my program specifically, but I know our program here at UNC Charlotte, they integrate things like your proposal defense within their coursework, right? And so there are different structures that allow you to be successful. You just have to look and align that with what you're looking for. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Marshall, to talk about preparing.
Thank you. So before you apply to any doctoral program, you need to make sure that you're what you want to ultimately do, you need a PhD for it, or you need a doctorate for it. I have seen students who start PhD programs, they get a job and they'll tell me this is really what I want to do. So I don't really need the PhD because this is what I have aspired to do. And I realize I can do it without the PhD. So make sure that you know what you want to do. If you're in areas like psychology, and most psychology majors, especially if you're trying to do like industrial research or clinical research, you have to have a doctorate in that. So make sure that you know what your goals are and do your homework. As Dr. Terry was talking about the networking, talk to faculty members you've worked with previously or work with currently, and they can tell you what may be a strong graduate program and what programs, or other programs you should consider. You should look at the individual programs within the institution, not necessarily the overall institution. You sometimes will be surprised at the rankings of certain programs, certain doctoral degree programs. Maybe the school isn't maybe in the top 100 of U.S. institutions, but maybe they have that one program that is in the top 5. So do your homework with the programs and don't be afraid to reach out to faculty. But before you reach out to faculty and you're interested maybe in learning more about the research that they're doing, actually read some of their research before you do that. It makes a difference. And I would say that when you're reaching out to faculty, don't get discouraged if they don't respond right away. I had a faculty member years ago told me that she said, I don't respond to the first email I receive from prospective students because I'm trying to see if they're truly interested in working with me or if they're just fishing for opportunities. So don't get discouraged. If there's a faculty member you're really interested in meeting with him or her about their research, give them time to respond. Don't send them another email like 2 hours later. And that's sometimes what students tend to do. If you don't respond right away, give us 24 to 48 hours before you send another email out wanting to talk to them. The main thing, as I said previously, and I'm working with both the software and information systems faculty and the computer science faculty. They're looking to see if you have research skills coming in the door. It's great if you have a high GPA, you had the highest GPA in your program. But they have a number of applications where students have really strong GPAs, but they're looking for those students who've had research skills. If you're in an undergraduate right now, go to a research lab and try to get some skills. It'd even be better if you've published a paper or you've attended a conference before you apply to doctoral programs. So those research skills are really, really important. Well, sometimes we have classes that students take before they come to the PhD program. And those are really important to help you to determine what you want to do. But I think the networking, as I said, is so important. Talk to even current students that you know. And that's how I think for a number of some of our doctoral programs, our students come in, and especially our master's program, because they know somebody already in the program and they've given them feedback about what the program's like, what they like and what they don't like. So connect with others who are on that particular campus if you know somebody, and get their feedback about the strengths and weaknesses of the program. But do your homework before you even apply to PhD programs, because we know, when we read applications with a PhD, I should say, you need to really narrow down what you want to do. Because sometimes I get applications and the person has listed 15 areas of research they're willing to do. And then they list like 15 faculty members, and it can be faculty members in SIS. I mean, they've just found, 10 different faculty members who they want to work with. That applicant was not admitted. Because doctoral study is it's more narrowly focused. And so you have to think about that. What are maybe 3 or 4 areas you're interested in? Don't list like 15 or 20, because that's going to be a definite no. So really determine what you want to do and how you're going to achieve that goal.
I think that's great. Our next slide is on, sort of the nuts and bolts of applying, but I'm really curious to both you, Jody and Terry, what are things that you all see that indicate to you that someone is prepared for that doctoral education? You just gave a really great example, Jody, about being spread a little too broadly. But I'm curious, what are some things that you all see that are both indicators of, yep, this person is on the right track, and also, this person really isn't quite ready? What are some things that you all have seen in your experiences?
I'll start. For me personally, it's the personal statement. The personal statement and references. Try to get references that are faculty members. Years ago, an applicant applied to the PhD program, and she listed a yoga instructor and someone she had just met at an alumni event as her references. So if you're looking for references, ask, especially faculty members, ask them, can they give you a strong letter of reference, or even if it's if it's an employer, can they give you a strong letter of reference? But those are my 2 things right now. Entry exam scores, test. I mean, we still take GRE, English test score. Those are not, I know for some of our faculty, sometimes those scores are really important, and there are some faculty members who will harp on it. But I think good references and personal statement are my top 2. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Terry.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think for us, we need to look at the students' GPA from the current institution. That's the first thing we'll take a look at it. In terms of the GRE score, so it's not our focus, and also TOEFL or other English score, it's not our focus. A TOEFL score is definitely, TOEFL or IELT score is definitely needed for international students, right? But if the student meets the standards set by the graduate school, we are fine with it, right? But GRE is, it's not required for our program, it's waived. Right? So we do look at the current the GPA the student had, right? So the second thing, like Jody said, is talking about the statement of purpose. That's something we read carefully. And I want to say the common question we got is how many pages, so I should write, so for the statement of purpose. I usually tell the students, I said, okay, 2 pages. Don't give us 10 pages. We don't,
Right.
the committee does not have the time to go through everything. So we want to, just to think about if you're admission a committee member, what you want to learn from the applicants here. You want to know who this applicant is, a little bit, personal background. Most of it is focused on the academic background and what we want to do, so at UNC Charlotte, what kind of research, right? We're looking for those kind of things. Again, like Dr. Judy said, don't give us 10 different areas you want to work with. Please be more specific, and also let's give us the hint that you have done your homework. You went through the websites, so all the websites, on our department websites there, and all the pages there, right? And then in terms of the other thing, what Judy said, you said the second thing.
Well, you're talking about the references?
Yeah, the reference. Yeah, the reference also very important. I also echo what Dr. Judy said is you need to find somebody who knows you well so that it is a standout reference letter. It's not, we have seen so many letters, it's all the same, so it's talking about, I taught this student, the student got an A from my course, that's it. So you want to find somebody who knows you well, so that's your letter will stand out. That's very, very important, I think.
And one last question I have before we move into, those aspects of applying. You both have your doctorates. Were there any particular things that you did that you felt like really helped prepare you, whether it's mentally, emotionally, because that's also, I know I feel emotional going through my program. So what were some things that you feel like were really helpful in your process?
Yeah, I will say for me, and I got my PhD from Virginia Tech, and I had some problems in my PhD program, but I had a wonderful village around me at Virginia Tech, and I'm still in contact with members of my village today. And you have to have people encouraging you, because there are times I've seen it, doctoral students will come to my office and they'll start crying about some of the issues they're facing, but it is about perseverance. So have a strong, village around you on campus. And I mean, you'll have your faculty advisor, but also there are other faculty on campus that can also mentor you. So that's what I would encourage, finding some good mentors and finding some people, and it could be your family, who will really, really provide you some support and guidance.
Absolutely. What about you, Dr. Terry?
Yeah, I agree with that. But I want to go back to the first bullet list on this slide, is clarify your goals. For me, I think that's very important steps. I come from Hong Kong and I got my master's degree. At that time, my advisor, the thesis advisor, asked me whether I want to continue for the PhD. And I said yes. I still remember that's a weekend. I said on Friday, I said yes. But then during the weekend, I give it more thoughts. I said, on the Monday, I told my advisor, I said no. So I was not very clear about what I want to do. So I went to the industry, worked for 2 years. And after that, I made my mind very clear. I want to get my doctoral degree. Why? I want to become a professor. So that's the reason I come to the United States. So where I came, I think I have very clear mind what I want to do. And luckily I want to back to what Dr. Judy said, is you need to find a mentor. Your mentor may not be your direct dissertation advisor. I had a very good mentor who was the chair of the department at Northwestern at that time. She is my role model. So I talk with her a lot. Okay? And she helped me even when I look for the job, she helped me a lot. So I think first to clarify what you want to do and also find a good mentor while you're studying for your PhD degree is very important. Yeah.
I think that's great advice, especially because you gave the human element of it. You're still humans, right? And so we do need support, and we do need assistance and people that can mirror back to us what they're seeing as we go through these processes. It's not just about sort of the nuts and bolts of the process. So that's great advice. Thank you. I want to be very clear, and I hope it's pretty obvious in what we've shared with you already. Every program is different. Every program is going to have a little nuance. You know, Dr. Terry talked about mechanical engineering specifically here, but you could go down the road and that PhD program could look very different, right? And so it's really that research component is going to be quite different. But these are, I think, some high level things that you can sort of expect. And then I will absolutely turn it over to our speakers to share any intricacies they see in that process as well. But the big takeaway is make sure that you're looking at the websites, specifically of the program, not just of the institution or the graduate school, so you can really understand what the expectations are. You're always, I think one thing that's probably always going to be true is an application. You're going to have to apply. And then transcripts. I know at UNC Charlotte, we expect that we have transcripts from every place that you've received college level credit. So if you have an associate's or a certificate, or you just took a couple of classes, maybe somewhere randomly, we expect all of those. I did take this point from one of Dr. Jody's presentations, good references. I think we've talked about that well, but I don't think we can overestimate that. You'd be surprised at how many folks just sort of cobble together references, or sometimes we get references and they're not necessarily good ones. They give maybe negative feedback. So making sure that you're asking people that really believe in what you're trying to do and support you in that. Personal statement, and I would, just as a little, both of you, Dr. Terry and Dr. Jody mentioned that. So I may turn it over to you in a moment to share what you all look for in personal statements, because those can be different as well. But that is where you get to come alive as a student, as a person. If you look at these other components, they tend to be sort of finite things. Your GPA is finite. Your years of work experience or research experience, those might be finite. But your personal statement allows us really an insight into who you are, what you hope to get out of this experience, where you're planning to go. And that helps us see if there's a good fit between who you are and the program. A resume, and this can be inclusive of collegiate experiences, employment experience, if you have teaching experience, and then of course research experiences. Some programs may have course or research prerequisites. One thing I want to lift up is Dr. Terry talked about, you know, there are two kind of modes that you can go into. If you are coming directly from a bachelor's, you have an option to go into a doctoral program, but you have some extra coursework that you have to take. And then there's advanced standing. And so that's really something that can be really interesting at the PhD level in the US as well. You don't necessarily have to have a master's depending on the program. That's going to be really important for you to look at, because I'm sure there are folks on the call that maybe have a master's, are in a master's program, or are not. And so there are a couple of pathways depending on the discipline that you're in. Entrance exams, Dr. Terry shared that for her programs, it's waived. Dr. Jody shared that is an expectation. So you want to make sure, because that usually takes some time, some planning, and usually some sort of financial investment, because those cost. An English language test score, make sure that you're looking at the right tests. Some schools only take one, you know, maybe it's IELTS or Duolingo, or what's the other one I'm missing? TOEFL. So make sure you're looking to see what aligns with the expectations there. Sometimes they'll ask for evidence of scholarly or creative activity. And sometimes there are interviews or even follow-ups beyond your application that you might have some outreach for. I know that we have PhD programs here that do interviews, group interviews, individual interviews, things like that. And then I just want to lift up some common deadlines. Those PhD programs, sometimes they only admit for one term a year. So that's important to look at. You may be thinking, oh, I can go in January, but they may be a fall only admit. So make sure that you're looking to see when are they actually taking, you know, doing intake each year. But in general, our PhD programs, sometimes they can have earlier deadlines than the master's or the graduate school deadlines. So make sure that you're really looking at that so you can plan out your timelines. We find that transcripts can take a while to pull together. References can take a while. And then sometimes really people get really caught up on personal statements, and that can take some time to really flesh out. And if you have to take exams, you want to give yourself time to study, to actually take the exam. Hopefully you do well the first time, but if you have to retake it, that's more time. So really be thoughtful about your timeline. It's not something that you can necessarily sit down and do in a weekend, right? You really need to kind of think through that longer piece. So I'd love to turn it over to you all. If you'd like to speak to personal statements, just because you shared that there were some things that you see that you might have some tips about, but anything around applying and tips that you may have or common things that you see that would be helpful to the group, please lift those up.
I will say with the personal statements, make sure that you are not rewriting your resume with your personal statement. And that's what a number of applicants tend to do. They just talk about what should be in a resume. They don't talk about what they're interested in studying. They'll just talk about their experiences, what they're interested in studying, and specifically, what type of research are you interested in doing? Have you thought about maybe ideals for a dissertation? Doesn't mean you have to do it. The faculty are trying to see if you truly understand the purpose of the PhD, and also what are the research areas. As I've said, don't list like 15 different areas. List a few areas, and some it's okay in a statement to even list specific faculty members that you want to work with. But before I have students or prospective applicants contact me all the time. I tell them to reach out to the faculty first before applying, because you might have a faculty member who is doing say computer vision, and we had 3 or 4 faculty members that do computer vision, and none of them are taking students for that next term. So reach out to the faculty members before you submit an application, because it is costly to submit applications. And I would encourage you, don't just apply to one institution. Apply to I would say at least 5 different institutions for PhD studies, because you want to, if you, especially many of you would come over to the US and you're studying full time, funding is very important, and you will need to find programs that not only if there's a fit with what you want to do, but there's funding available to support you. I'll turn it over to Dr. Terry now.
Thank you. Yeah. I want to talk about the last bullet, the interview. So again, this is just for our program, and the different program, different institution have a different requirement. So for our program, all the students who got admitted at the time they got admission, that means they already had a dissertation advisor identified. And that means during the week we receive your application, the admission committee will first screen it. If you meet our basic, standards, we are going to share the application with the faculty member whose research expertise align with what you mentioned in your statement of purpose, your academic interest. And we share the application with the faculty member. Faculty member go through it, and they will let the committee know whether they want to kind of invest more time to do an interview with the students. And then if they are going to interview the students, I have seen different practice here. Some just went into interview and they just come back, oh, I want to take this student. Some will give their student a small project. Okay, so maybe it's say, oh, this is a paper I published a couple of years ago. Please read it, and then a week later, give me a presentation. And then some faculty member just a very small project, a coding project, and come 2 weeks later come to talk with me. And then based on their the outcome of those presentation or the results, the coding, the program you write, right? So, and the faculty member will make the decision whether they would take the student. Right? So if usually, we will share the application with 3 faculty member. Of course, if the first one say, yes, I'm going to take the student, that's good, congratulations. If after 3 faculty member, the applicants was not picked, so then we would deny the application. So I just want to talk about that. That's what is happening in our program. But again, so different programs have a different, so practice there.
Dr. Terry, I'm gonna, I was thinking when you were talking about faculty members asking students to read papers, we had a faculty member just recently, and she's a new faculty member who was interacting with a prospective applicant, and she said, well, I have this paper I want you to read and give me feedback. And she was upset because 15 minutes later, the applicant was responding to her about the paper. And she said there's no way they could have read that paper in 15 minutes because it was a 60-page paper. So we assume that the applicant used Chat GPT to read the paper. So if a faculty member asks you to read the paper, please read the paper. Don't ask a Chat GPT to read the paper for you, because her thoughts were the applicant was not getting a true understanding of the research that I'm doing. And so she eliminated that applicant immediately. So please, go ahead.
Go ahead, please. No, please.
So please look at the research of the faculty member and don't depend on the internet to give you feedback about what that paper was about.
Yeah, what I was going to lift up sorry, go ahead, Dr. Terry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I think this is a very good point. I also want to let the prospective students know. So you understand what the faculty member asked for. So I got some comments from the faculty member. For example, they asked the student to read that particular paper, and then 2 weeks later, the student present a totally different topic. And then the faculty member just immediately say, oh, what's going on? So you're not listening to me, right? So just during the interview process, if you are asked to read a paper or write a program, work on a small project, so to make sure you understand what the faculty member is asking for. So that's very important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, I think there were two things that sort of pinged me while you all were chatting, which are, the intentionality and the level of investment that is expected at this level. So I think you make a great point. Like, don't try not to cut corners, right? Like, let's not put things into Chat GPT. Let's not turn over our brain to those tools, right? Like, let's be really intentional, because those are things I would imagine that faculty member said, wow, I gave them 60 pages to read. They responded in 15 minutes and put it through, some sort of AI tool. What is that going to look like if they're a student, right? And so these are things that are indicating to faculty, whether or not you're going to be a really good PhD student, whether you're going to be successful, right? Because at the end of the day, we want you to graduate and be successful. The other thing that pinged me while you were chatting is just the importance truly of reaching out and connecting. I know that can create a lot of anxiety because you are chatting. You're sort of like, oh, I'm this student or this prospective student, and I'm trying to get to a certain place, and I don't want to take up people's time or things like that. But what you just shared about interviews and how they can vary, that's not something that's going to be on a website, right? That's intel that you're going to get only through chatting. I know that we're short on time, so the next couple of slides I'm going to sort of breeze through, even though they are important. But investing in your education, some things that we've shared, oftentimes funding is very highly competitive. There are going to be some programs that can fully fund you, and then others that may be able to partially fund you. And those funding mechanisms are going to look different. I've listed a couple of things that you might want to consider. Finances are so very different and personal. So I really wanted to keep this high level, things that you should really be thinking about. But to that point around connecting with people, asking those questions. PhD funding is a very common topic to bring up, to talk. So I want to sort of normalize you having that conversation when you do connect, reach out, look on websites. You should be having conversations around what does funding look like. Now, the expectation, I'm not telling you that you need to expect every program to fully fund you, but that should be a conversation that faculty are very frequently having and should sort of know about, right? I think I'm not speaking out of turn, Dr. Jody and Dr. Terry. You kind of expect that people are going to ask you about what does funding look like, things like that in the process. So highly competitive. It oftentimes programs will provide or try and connect you to graduate assistantships. That may look like you being a research assistant with faculty, a teaching assistant. So you may be teaching some undergrad courses or things like that alongside faculty. Student loans are always a thing. Grant funding, and that's another plug I'd like to make. If you're in a STEM field, oftentimes there are a lot of grants that faculty are on, so that can provide funding or positions, or even grants that you can look at as additional funding sources. Look at institutional scholarships, but I highly encourage you to also look at outside scholarships. Look at your government. Are there any government programs that you all have that provide sponsorships or things like that? There are some countries that provide that for certain disciplines or levels of programs. On and off campus employment, I know that I just shared, or we all just sort of shared, there's a lot to the PhD, so it could be a lot to look for employment as well, but for certain situations, that may be something you have to look at. And then payment plans. Are there alternative payment options, right? Sometimes it goes to loans, payment plans, things like that. I know that we're super short on time, but is there anything that you all wanted to raise up on the funding component?
I would say, especially with international students, off-campus employment is not feasible to be in. So if you're enrolled as a student full-time and the institution is paying you, you can't take a job. Like I can't go to a retail store and take a job. It's not feasible.
And it usually doesn't align with your visa requirements as well. So
Right,
those are
correct,
all
sorry.
things that you'll have to consider. And no, don't apologize. It's just something to list up, and really making sure that you understand the cost of attendance, which is going to include things like books and transportation and housing and all of those sort of indirect costs that don't just mean tuition and fees, right? So those are things that you really want to think about, especially if you're traveling, quite a ways away, and considering your education. Managing time as a PhD, I'm going to skip this for now because I do think that we've given a lot of tips, and I think that we've impressed upon you that it's really important for you to really think about the level of investment and make sure that it aligns with where you are in your life right now and your expectations. I'm not sure if this will circulate afterwards, but hopefully you can screenshot this or take a picture or something like that and maybe ruminate on that later. And then our last slide, really, because we wanted to speak to career outcomes and pathways, I'll just ask that you all take 30 seconds or so to let us know, like, where are your alumni going when people are graduating? Where are they ending? What are the types of things that they're doing?
I will start, right? So that picture, images from our program. So our program students have very good job placements, so, and of course, students need to do their work. They publish a lot. And then by the time they are going to apply for the job, faculty member help a lot. And also the alumni who graduate from the same research group help. So you can see our students are a lot in those Fortune 500 companies. So we have a very good job placement. Yeah. And we have 60% are international students. So just want to let the perspective to students know, international students do get good job after getting PhD from our program. Yeah.
Thank you for that plug.
I would say most of our students will go to companies like Apple. They go to Microsoft and other computing related jobs, but also even some of our banks around here, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Lowe's is a big employer of some of our PhD students, and our PhD program is about 90% international. So I haven't known, since I've been here for the past 6 years, I haven't known one student in our PhD program that couldn't find a job. They do find employment opportunities.
I hate that we had to kind of rush through that because those were really important points. But just lifting up that, it can be, I don't know if lucrative is quite the right word I want to use, but there are really great opportunities on the back end of your PhD and the skills that you'll be able to gain and employ. And I love that you all plugged how many international students are in your programs, because I know that that is a top concern when considering really moving, away from home to a whole new culture, things like that. So I know I didn't leave much time for questions. I didn't really see too much in the chat, but I'll turn it back over to you, Yana, to either close us out or open up for questions.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for this amazing presentation. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your expertise and personal experience and valuable insights and tips. Frankly speaking, I was really looking forward for this webinar because I'm finishing my master degree now, and I have already started thinking of, getting PhD. So I was really looking forward for your advice. And to be honest, now everything is kind of clearer in my mind because I have got a lot of questions and a lot of, different strategies and different information. And now it's kind of sorted, and I'm really grateful for this. And yeah, I encourage everyone who is watching this webinar now to leave your questions in the chat box if you have them. And personally, I have one kind of practical question, because as you, Jody, mentioned, it can be a great idea to reach out to faculty members. And
Yes.
my question, how to do it in a right way? For example, I really want to, text them, write an email. What should be included in that email? Should I kind of present myself, my plans, I don't know, my research? What should be included there to increase your chances to get the response?
Well, I would say before you even email them, as I've said, read some of their research, and Dr. Cherry can since she is a faculty member in engineering, she can give her feedback, but read their research before you just reach out to them. Don't start I wouldn't, if you're going to email them, address them with, Dr. So-and-so or Miss So-and-so, know what their title is. And don't start off with saying, I'm looking for a research opportunity in your lab, and do you have any money, this and that. I think that you have to know what their research is and start the conversation about something that you've read, some of the research that you've read, and your feedback, or maybe you have some questions about it. That would be my advice as far as reaching out to faculty. Just don't start saying, I want this, this, and this. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, since she is a faculty member. What do you think?
I fully agree with you. So I receive a lot of emails every day from the prospective students. And I'm looking for more specific, so why you are interested in my research. That means you went through my webpage there, right? So you know what I'm working on. I'm working in the material science. I receive emails from students who has the background in fluid mechanics. It's totally different field, right? So so you need to be more specific in your email. But also, I just want to let you know, not all the faculty member will respond. That's be realistic. I respond, but not all faculty member will respond. So some, for example, like my colleagues, some of them, they told me very clear. They only will review the official package. If you submit the official package, they will review, they will consider. They don't look at the random email, right? So, but it doesn't mean you cannot email us. Just feel free, right? So some of us will respond, right? The other thing I think is important is just to look at some of my colleagues, they will post the advertisements on LinkedIn on hire PhD. So respond to those advertisements and then have the communication. So that's another way, yeah. Also, attend the information section. So our program runs monthly information section. If a faculty member is looking for students, I will talk about during the information section. Right? So I would say I told all the prospective students there's 3 different ways how to find an advisor. One is just through the routine, right? So you put in the application, let the admission committee to do the job for you. The second, just try your luck, email individual faculty member. The third one is just respond to their the advertisement they posted on LinkedIn or other social media. So there's 3 different ways you can find the advisor. From my experience, I think the first one, just submit your application. Most, I would say 70% of our students we admitted is through the normal application pool.
Okay, got it. Thank you, because I even haven't considered in some ways. Thank you. Yeah, and one last brief question. Actually, how to find the best fit for you? I mean, should I just Google different universities and look up the information on their websites, or maybe there are some specific platforms that I can use to find the PhD programs that would be, like a great fit for me?
You can look online, but also I would recommend if students are going to conferences or part of professional organizations, look at which schools, what institutions are part of those professional organizations or at the conferences. Conferences are the best way to network for faculty. I mean, for you to network with faculty. And I've received communications from prospective applicants, and they'll say, well, I met Dr. So-and-so at this conference, and he was sharing with me the work that UNC Charlotte is doing in this particular area in computer science education. I'm interested in it. And so networking is very, very important. And I think one of the things I see with many students, especially here in the US, they're scared to go to conferences because they've never been in those spaces. So if you're overseas, there are many, like in our field, computer science, most of our conferences are overseas. So that's how you can network with some of our faculty or some of our students. We have PhD students who travel to other countries and present their research. Networking is, as Dr. Terry mentioned earlier, it's so important.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Sometimes social capital is even more important than financial one. So yeah,
Yes.
absolutely agree. Thank you for this advice. Okay, I see that we have a question in the chat, but I believe that it is addressed to me. Will it be possible to watch in the recording? Yes, it will be. The recording will be posted on our YouTube channel, EducationUSA Ukraine, as well as on different Facebook platforms, our Facebook, EducationUSA Ukraine, and Facebooks of our partners, America House Lviv, Kyiv, and Odessa. So you will definitely have a chance to rewatch it. And I believe that it will be really useful because, usually when advisees come to some consultations and I'm kind of struggling with some resources and with like sharing some interesting useful links on videos. So now I will definitely have something to share with them. So thank you once again for your expertise and for this webinar. It was personally for me very useful, and I believe that our students will be benefit from watching it. Thank you. And Sabrina, thank you for your amazing facilitation of the conversation, because, I have written down some questions and sometime just went and you immediately, arose these questions. So it was really helpful. Thank you. And thank you once again, Dr. Judy, Dr. Terry, for your expertise. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a lovely day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.